So we're going to start today with talking about alternate interior angles. So you have the picture on the front cover. So if you look at, we're going to fill in inside here. So thinking back to what we've done before, how are alternate interior angles related? What's their relationship to each other? They're congruent, right? They're equal to each other. So under the relationship part, we're going to write congruent. They're equal to each other. Okay, so for a hint, when you're talking about alternate interior angles, we talked about this before, but notice the yellow highlight there? They make the Z or the zigzag. So for hint, something you could write there would be like you're looking for the letter Z or you're looking for a zigzag. Again, this is meant for you. We've kind of talked about the basics of this already, but I noticed the questions that you had based on the worksheet, and even the way some of you did the worksheet when I was grading them, some of you are still struggling with the algebra portion. So that's what today is about. You don't have to use highlighters or colored pencils, but if it helps you, that's what you should be doing. Again, this is not for a grade. This is your notebook. This is meant to give you guidance. When it comes down time for the exam at the end of the semester, in the past, I've let you use your notebook. This is hopefully trying to get you to stay organized. One of the reasons why I went with the interactive notebook rather than the binder, because I know some of you, if I say use a binder, you're just going to stuff everything else in the binder besides geometry. So hopefully at this point, our notebook is just geometry, trying to get you to stay organized. If I say open to this page, within a page or two, you should be at where I'm at. Maybe you're off by a page, etc., but trying to get you to stay organized. Okay, so back to this problem here. If they are congruent, what does that mean again? What does congruent mean? They're same. They're equal to each other. So equation-wise, you would say that one of them is equal to the other, right? So if I'm going to solve for x in this particular situation, one of the angles is x plus 100. So I'm going to say x plus 100 equals the other angle, which is 3x. Everybody still with me? Okay, so I'm going to just use my Algebra 1 skills to solve this. So how do I get x on a side by itself? What am I going to do? Okay, if I subtract x from each side, what's 3x minus x? So we're going to say 2x equals 100. So what is x going to equal? 50. So it depends on what my problem is asking. If it just asked me to find x, I'd be done, because your worksheet, all it said was to find x, right? But I will tell you that on your review next week for your assessment and on the assessment, some of the questions I do ask is to plug it back in then to find your angle. So if I'm trying to find angle 1, for instance, okay, so in my equation, angle 1 is x plus 100, right? So what's 50 plus 100?
150.
So angle 1 is going to be 150. All I'm doing is plugging it back in for x here. I'm plugging in the 50. So 50 plus 100 is 150. If I just plug it in to check my math here, what's 3 times 50? 150. And were they supposed to be equal? Yep, so I did it correctly. That's one way to check if you're on the right track. If I got one of them was 150 and the other one was 100, something's wrong, because they're supposed to be equal to each other. Okay, questions on that? Everybody have good so far? Okay, so again, this is meant to be a review. Hopefully you got this down. This is for people who are still struggling with the algebra. Okay, so for the next part, we have alternate exterior angles. So again, the picture, if I trace them, they look something like that. There's no cool looking Z for this one. That's just something they do. Some people have their own hints. If you see something that sticks in your head, write it down. I don't have a good thing for the hint part on this one. But for relationship, how are alternate exterior angles related to each other? They're congruent. So here in this box for relationship, we're going to put they are congruent. They are equal to each other. So again, I don't really have a great hint. If you see something when you look at that, great, you can write that down. But I don't have a great hint for this particular one, so I'm going to leave that spot blank. So again, if they are congruent, when it comes to the algebra portion, again, we're going to set them equal to each other. Congruent means they're equal. They're the same. Okay, so one angle is 5x. That looks really sloppy there. Let's try that again. So again, one angle is what? 5x minus 10. So we're going to set 5x minus 10 equal to the other angle, which is 6x minus 40. So again, if they're congruent, if they're equal to each other, we're going to set the equations, each angle equal to the other one. So again, now we're at the point where we're just using our algebra skills to solve for x. So to do this one, we would probably subtract 5x from each side. So we're going to have negative 10 equals 6x minus 5x is just x. And then I have a minus 40 left on that side. So if I'm going to continue solving for x, I would add 40 now to both sides. Okay, so what is negative 10 plus 40? 30. So again, if I was asked to just find x, x would be 30. But if my question asked me to find what angle 1 or angle 2 were for that matter, I would have to plug it back in. So if I plug it back in for angle 1, so let's do some mental math here. So this part, what's 5 times 30? What's 150 minus 10? 140. So angle 1's 140. Now if I did it correctly, angle 2 should be what? 140. So let's test it. What's 6 times 30? 180 minus 40 is 140. So I did the math right. So again, the purpose of today is to help us clarify the algebra portion. Most of you, it looked like on the worksheet were fine. If I told you one angle was 70, you were able to tell me the other one was 70. But I think some of you struggled when we threw the expressions in there with axes. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, let's continue on then. We have 3 more on this particular side, right? We have corresponding same side interior and same side exterior. So corresponding angles, if I would trace them in the picture, they look like this. Highlighted. Now, there is a way to think of these that we haven't really talked about before. This is what I think of as an upside down F. If it doesn't look like that to you, then you can go with something else. But if I would actually take this picture, and can you picture if I would rotate it around? It looks like a backwards F then, doesn't it? So if you see something that's going to resemble the letter F in some way, you're probably looking at corresponding angles. Okay, now what's true about corresponding angles? How are they related? They're congruent as well. This is like those little flip tabs in your notes. You know what I'm talking about? There were 3 on that first page. Those were the ones that were all congruent. Those were your alternate interior angles, your alternate exterior angles, and your corresponding angles. So since they are congruent, when we write our equation, again, they are going to be equal to each other. One of them equals the other one. If they're congruent, they're the same. So in this case, we know angle 1 is 10x minus 35, or 10x plus 35. So we're going to say 10x plus 35 equals angle 2, which is 6x plus 75. So again, they are equal to each other. So again, we're going to use our Algebra 1 skills to solve for x. So to do this, the first thing I would be doing, most likely, is to subtract 6x from each side. So we're going to have 4x plus 35 equals 75. Okay, so if I continue solving for x here, we would subtract 35 from each side. So what's 75 minus 35? 40. So if 4x equals 40, what does x equal? 10. So again, if the direction said just to find x, I could stop here. X would be 10. But if the direction said, okay, you need to find angle 1 or angle 2, then we need to plug it back in. So again, if we plug it in for angle 1, what is 10 times 10? Plus 35? That was an easy one, right? A little easier mental math. So again, assuming I did this correct, angle 2 should also be 135, right? If I double check it, what's 6 times 10? 60, and 60 plus 75 is still 135. So we did it correctly. Is this helping with your algebra struggles? Hopefully I'm not just wasting a day here. Hopefully this is actually just reinforcing your algebra. Okay, so up next, we've got two more on this particular page, and then we've got the other side to go. Next up, we have same side interior angles. So if I trace the same side interior angles in the picture, it looks like this. And I know we talked about this one before. Anybody remember what the hint for this one is? It's a C. So if you see the letter C, that's a backward C on this particular picture. Okay, but if you see a letter C in some form, maybe if it's rotated the other way, it looks like a U or an arch. Okay, but if you see some type of, if you trace it, if you see that going on in the picture, that's referring to same side interior angles. So relationship-wise, what's true about our same side interior angles? Are they congruent? Do you remember? They're not congruent. They are, do you remember how they're related? Supplementary, very good. What does supplementary mean again? Yeah, their sum is 180 degrees. So, whereas all of the other problems, when we set up our algebra, we always set them equal to each other. For same side interior angles, since their sum is 180, we're going to have one of them plus the other one, again, equals 180. So again, their sum, when I add them, I get 180 degrees. So one of them in this particular problem is what? 5x plus 60? So we're going to say 5x plus 60 plus the other one, which is 2x plus 36. Again, that equals 180. So now again, we're just using our algebra skills to solve. So what's 5x plus 2x? 7x. Okay, what's 60 plus 36 to combine like terms? Okay, so 7x plus 96 equals 180. So if I subtract 96 from both sides, what's 180 minus 96? 84, good. So 7x equals 84. What does x equal? 12. That's why I said you might want the calculator today. If you're not good with the mental math, that's okay. Okay, so again, if x is 12, if all the question asked me was to find x, great, I'd be done. But if it didn't, if I was supposed to find the angles, what I would do, again, would be to plug it back in. So if I do that, to find angle 1, okay, what's 5 times 12? 60, right? 5 feet is 60 inches, right? So what's 60 plus 60? 120. So assuming I did this problem correctly, before I even plug it into the other one, if these are same side interior angles and they are supplementary, what should angle 2 be? It should be 60. So if I plug it in, what's 2 times 12? 24 plus 36, is that 60? Yeah, so I did it correctly. So again, same side interior angles are supplementary. Where people make mistakes on these is they always want to set everything equal to each other. But if they're not congruent, excuse me, then that's not the way you go about it. It depends on the problem. Okay, so we have, what, one more thing on this side? Is that right? Okay, so same side exterior angles. So if I look at my picture and I highlight them, it looks like this. Anybody got any cool things to say about that picture that would help us? Not really, no. I don't have a way that works. People look at like 2 L's, one going one way, one reflected the other way. You can do that if you like. There's not really a trick for seeing these in the picture. If you see one, great, jot that down. I don't really see one when I look at it. Okay? So if we leave that one blank, or just put like a, maybe I don't want to put an X through it because maybe you'll think that's an X for the hint. But how are same side interior angles related? Remember S's, same side, they are supplementary. So if you see the S's, stick with the S's, S for supplementary. So same side exterior angles are supplementary as well. Again, that means their sum is 180 degrees. Okay, so when we write the equation, we're going to do something just like we did for the other one. Again, when I add them together, I get 180 degrees. So one of them is 5x plus 70. The other one is 3x minus 26. Everybody still with me? Okay, so let's combine terms here. What's 5x plus 3x? 8x, okay. What's 70 minus 26? 44, okay, so we're doing okay here. So we have 8x plus 44 equals 180. So what are we going to do next? Okay, so if we subtract 44 from each side, what's 180 minus 44? 136. Okay, so how's our mental math here? If I divide that by 8, I get? What is it? 17. Okay, using a calculator, there's nothing wrong with that. So x is 17. So to find my two angles, again, if it just asked me to find x, we'd stop there, we're good. Okay, to find my angles, angle 1, this is again where you might want a calculator. What's 5 times 17? What is it? Plus 70? Okay, so assuming we're doing the mental math right, that should be 155. Now, angle 2, if they're supplementary, what should my answer be before I even write it down here? Work it out.
25.
Should be 25. So if we check it, what's 3 times 17? 51, right? And what's 51 minus 26? Is it 25?
Yeah.
Yep, so we did it correctly. So even if you're just asked to find x and stop, it's probably not a bad idea if you don't trust your math skills to plug it back in to make sure it does work. Okay, questions about this so far? Am I going too fast? Okay, so we've got the other side to go, and since we're actually getting better at this, I feel like we're getting quicker. This one probably shouldn't take as long. So we've got, what, vertical angles, adjacent angles, linear pair, complementary, and supplementary. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, let's go to the next page then. So vertical angles. How are vertical angles related? What's their relationship? They're congruent. Very good. So vertical angles are congruent. If I would trace them in the picture, what does that look like? What's my hint going to be? An X. So again, if you see a hint, or if you see an X in the picture when you trace your angles, that should be vertical angles in your picture. You should see the X. Now, since they are congruent, for my algebra portion, we're going to set them equal to each other. Because they're congruent, they're equal. So if one of them is, what is it, 7x plus 22, and the other one is 10x minus 38. So again, we're going to use our algebra skills to solve for x. So what would you do first? Subtract what? Okay, so if we subtract 7x from each side, okay, we're going to have 22 equals 3x minus 38. Okay, so what would we do next?
Add 38.
Okay, so if we add 38 to both sides, what's 22 plus 38? 60. So what's x going to be? 20. Okay, that's nice. X is 20. That worked out a little bit easier mental math-wise. So again, if we were just asked to find x, we'd be done with the problem. X is going to be 20. Okay, if I wasn't, if I have to find an angle, we're going to plug it back in. So for angle 1 here, what's 7 times 20? 140. What's 140 plus 22? 162. So again, if I'm doing this correctly, what should angle 2 be? 162. So if we test it, what's 10 times 20? And what's 200 minus 38? 162. So I did do this correctly. They're both 162. We feel like we're getting better with algebra here.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Some of you are like, I don't know. Okay, got a couple more to go here. Adjacent angles. What's the relationship for adjacent angles? Do you remember what we put in our notebook before? They're side by side. They what? They share a vertex. Good. Okay, so adjacent angles share a vertex and they share this side. That makes them adjacent. Okay, do they have to be congruent? Do they have to be the same? Could they be? Yeah, but we don't know that they're equal. They're neither. Okay, so for relationship, you can put there is none. There is no relationship for adjacent angles. Okay, for hint, I don't know what you want to put. Somebody said last Erica looks like a flashlight if you highlight it in yellow. I don't know. That's their concept. What I like to think about hint-wise for adjacent angles, in the past, I've thought of them as next-door neighbors. I know that sounds kind of goofy. But for next-door neighbors, they have to be right next to each other. If you think of something else that works for you, that's fine. That's what I just think of. So again, this is your notebook. You got to put down what helps you out. So if there's no relationship, am I going to have an equation? Nope. Put a big X in that spot. There's no equation to write because they're not necessarily related to each other. They could be supplementary, they could be congruent, but that's always the case. So I don't have an equation to write there. Okay, questions so far? We got, what, 3 to go? Okay. Let's keep it going here. Okay, so the next one up we have is what? Linear pair? So, how are linear pairs related to each other? What'd you say? Yeah, their sum is 180. They are supplementary. Their sum is 180 degrees. Now, I don't have a great hint for linear pairs. Somebody said earlier today it looks like an open mousetrap. I don't know. Looks like a Y. Okay, so you could say it looks like that. I don't know. Looks like a Y. If a Y works for you, go for it. I don't have a great hint to put down there like a letter, but that works. Okay, so again, since they're supplementary, going back to the other page, supplementary again means their sum. When I add them together, I have to get 180 degrees. So if one of them is, let's see here, what, 2x plus 50? And the other one is 3x minus 70. Okay, so we're going to use our algebra skills to combine like terms here. So what's 2x plus 3x? 5x, okay. What's 50 minus 70? Negative 20, okay. So 5x minus 20 equals 180. So next I would add 20 to both sides. So what's 180 plus 20? 200. So what's x going to be? 40. So again, if I was just asked to find x and I could stop there, that would be my answer. But if it actually asked me to find the angles, I'd have to plug it back in. So let's start with angle 1 here. What's 2 times 40? Plus 50? 130? Okay. So without plugging it back in, what should angle 2 be? 50, because again, they have to add up to be 180. 180 minus 130 is 50. If I plug it in, 3 times 40 is 120, and 120 minus 70 is 50. So I did it correct. So again, it all depends on what you're asked for your answer. If it just says find x, you would stop there. If it actually is asking you to figure out what the angle should be degree-wise, then you would plug it back in. Okay, so we have 2 left. Okay, so we have complementary and supplementary. Okay, so what's true about complementary angles? Are they congruent? Do they have to be congruent? Yeah, their sum is 90. So again, when you add them together, you have to get 90. Some people want to get always stuck on the 180 concept, but again, if they're complementary, their sum is 90. Good. As for a hint, I don't know. Some people like to think that it makes like an L when you put them together. If that works for you, otherwise you can leave it blank. Okay, so for the algebra portion, again, if their sum is 90, what that means is, again, when I add them together, I get 90. Make sense? Okay, so one of them is 5x and the other one is 4x. So I've got 5x plus 4x equals 90. So what do I get when I combine like terms here? What's 5x plus 4x? So if 9x equals 90, what does x equal? 10, okay. So again, if I was just asked to find x, I would stop there. X is going to be 10. If that wasn't my question, if I was asked to plug it back in to find my two angles, so for angle 1, what's 5 times 10? 50. That one's easier mental math rise, right? And the other one, 4 times 10? 40. And if I double check it, does 50 plus 40 give me 90? Yeah, so I'm doing it right. Okay, we have one final one to finish on this table here, and that is supplementary angles. Now, supplementary angles, sometimes people get caught up that it's the same picture as linear pair. And yeah, I get that. Supplementary looks like a linear pair, but sometimes they don't. As long as the two angles add together to give you what for supplementary? 180. As long as their sum is 180, they are supplementary. Sometimes they look like they're a linear pair, but sometimes they don't. So you have to rely on the concept that supplementary, again, means sum is 180. So I don't have a cool picture or a cool hint for it. If you want to use the same one as linear pair, that's fine. But again, my point is, just because they're supplementary does not mean they have to look like a linear pair. So again, for my equation part, since their sum is 180, again, one plus the other one gives me 180. So this one might be a little more challenging mental math. We'll see here. So one of them is 12x minus 7. The other one is 9x minus 44. So again, we need to combine like terms here. So what's 12x plus 9x? So we have 21x. What is a negative 7 and a negative 44? Okay, so we have 21x minus 51 equals 180. Okay, so what are we going to do next? Add 51. So what's 180 plus 51? 231. Okay, so anybody know what you get when you divide 231 by 21? 11? Okay, good. So again, if my answer was just find x, we would stop with 11. But if it doesn't, we need to plug it back in to find our angles, which is fine. So if we do that, angle 1. Okay, angle 1. Okay, so what's 12 times 11? $132? Does that sound right? What's 132 minus 7? What is it? 125. Okay, so that means that angle 2, according to my problem, should be what, 55? So let's check it. So what is 9 times 11 minus 44? 55. Okay, so my point of doing this today was so that you felt better about the algebra portion. Is that true now? We feel a little better? Okay, so